The once ravaged battlefields now stand silent. These grounds, once echoing with the cries of soldiers and the thunder of artillery, have been reclaimed by nature. The wildflowers that now bloom here are a stark contrast to the bloodshed that once stained this soil. Lush greenery reclaims the trenches. The scars of war, though still visible, are softened by the passage of time and the resilience of nature. Trees and plants have taken root in the very places where soldiers once huddled in fear. Birdsong fills the air where cannons roared. The melodies of nature now replace the cacophony of battle, a testament to the healing power of time. Birds, oblivious to the history beneath their wings, bring life back to these haunted fields. It's tempting to believe, looking at this serene landscape, that war is a relic of the past. The tranquility here suggests a world that has moved beyond conflict, a world that has learned from its mistakes. A chapter humanity has finally closed. The silence of these fields whispers of peace, of lessons learned, and of a future free from the horrors of war. But is it truly so? Can we be certain that the specter of war has been banished forever? Or is it merely lying dormant, waiting for the right moment to reawaken? Or have we simply turned the page to a new, more complex chapter in the chronicle of conflict? A chapter where battles are fought not with swords and guns but with ideas, technology, and economic power. Humanity's story since its dawn has been punctuated by the drumbeat of war. From the earliest skirmishes over territory to the great wars that shaped nations, conflict has been a constant companion. From the dawn of civilization to the atomic age, we have been locked in a cycle of violence. Each era, each generation, has faced its own battles, its own struggles for power and survival. Each conflict, a brutal testament to our capacity for destruction. The remnants of these wars, the rusted weapons and crumbling fortifications, serve as grim reminders of our past. Yet something feels different now. The world seems to be on the cusp of a new era, one where the old ways of waging war are becoming obsolete. The world hasn't seen a large-scale conflict between major powers for decades. Diplomacy, international cooperation, and the threat of mutual destruction have kept the peace. Is this the long-awaited peace, or merely a pause in the storm? As we stand on these transformed battlefields, we must ask ourselves, have we truly learned from our past, or are we simply waiting for history to repeat itself? The end of the Second World War brought a wave of optimism. People around the world rejoiced, believing that a new era of peace and prosperity was on the horizon. The streets were filled with celebrations, and there was a collective sigh of relief as the guns fell silent. The horrors of global conflict were still fresh, etched into the memories of those who had lived through the bombings, the battles, and the loss. Cities lay in ruins, and countless families were displaced, struggling to rebuild their lives from the rubble. The cost in human life was immeasurable. Millions had perished, leaving behind a legacy of grief and sorrow. War memorials and military graves stood as solemn reminders of the sacrifices made. This led to the creation of the United Nations, a beacon of hope in a world yearning for peace. The UN was established with the aim of fostering international cooperation and preventing future conflicts. The aim was clear: to prevent another such catastrophe. Diplomats from around the globe gathered, shaking hands and signing treaties, determined to build a framework for lasting peace, to foster dialogue, diplomacy, and cooperation. The United Nations became a platform where nations could come together to resolve their differences through discussion rather than conflict. The decades that followed, however, were defined by a different kind of conflict: the Cold War. This was not a war fought with traditional weapons, but with ideologies and influence. It was a war of ideologies, a clash between superpowers. The United States and the Soviet Union vied for global dominance, each promoting their own vision for the future. Yet it was a war fought in the shadows, with espionage, propaganda, and proxy conflicts. Spies operated in the dark, gathering intelligence, while propaganda films sought to sway public opinion. The threat of nuclear annihilation loomed large, a chilling reminder of the stakes. People lived in constant fear, practicing duck-and-cover drills, aware that a single misstep could lead to unimaginable destruction. But the battlefields, for the most part, remained cold. The world held its breath, hoping that diplomacy and deterrence would prevail over the specter of war. Today, the nature of war has undergone a fundamental transformation. Battle lines are blurred, no longer confined to geographical borders. We live in a hyper-connected world, where the digital realm has become the new battleground. Cyber warfare, with its stealthy intrusions and crippling attacks, represents a new face of conflict. Economic warfare, too, has emerged as a potent weapon. Nations utilize sanctions, trade wars, and currency manipulation to cripple their adversaries. The objective is no longer solely territorial conquest, but rather the crippling of economies, the sowing of discord, and the undermining of political systems. The battlefields may be unseen, but the casualties are very real. Proxy wars, a chilling echo of the Cold War, continue to shape global conflicts. These are wars fought by third parties, often in developing nations, fueled by the backing of larger powers. They become entangled in complex webs of alliances, with devastating consequences for civilian populations. These conflicts serve as a stark reminder that even in the absence of direct confrontation between superpowers, the world is far from peaceful. The pursuit of geopolitical interests continues to fuel instability and violence, often at the expense of innocent lives. Section 5. The Spectre of Terror. The rise of terrorism, a decentralized and unpredictable form of warfare, has further complicated the global security landscape. Driven by extremist ideologies, terrorist organizations employ violence against civilians to sow fear and advance their agendas. This form of asymmetric warfare, where non-state actors challenge state power, poses significant challenges to traditional notions of warfare and defense. Terrorism thrives on instability and division, exploiting social and political fault lines to spread its ideology of hate and violence. Combating this threat requires a multifaceted approach, addressing not just the symptoms, but the root causes that fuel extremism. Section 6. The Digital Colosseum. The media, wielding the power of the internet and 24/7 news cycles, plays a pivotal role in shaping our understanding of war and peace. Information, misinformation, and propaganda are disseminated at lightning speed, influencing public opinion and shaping the narrative of conflict. Social media in particular has become a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can be a powerful tool for raising awareness, mobilizing support, and advocating for peace. On the other hand, it can be used to spread propaganda, incite hatred, and exacerbate divisions. In this digital age, understanding the role of media and technology in shaping perceptions of war is crucial. Section 7. Seeds of Peace. Despite the seemingly unending cycle of conflict, there are glimmers of hope. Global peace efforts, spearheaded by international organizations, NGOs, and individuals, tirelessly work to mediate disputes, provide humanitarian aid, and promote dialogue. The International Criminal Court, though imperfect, stands as a testament to the growing global consensus against war crimes and crimes against humanity. The pursuit of peace, however, is not merely the absence of war. It requires addressing root causes such as poverty, inequality, and injustice. It calls for fostering understanding, tolerance, and empathy across cultures and ideologies. Section 8. The Paradox of Our Time. We live in a world grappling with a fundamental paradox. Despite our advancements, we find ourselves in a constant struggle between progress and regression. On one hand, technological advancements have brought us closer than ever before. We can communicate instantly across the globe, share ideas, and collaborate in ways that were once unimaginable. We are interconnected, interdependent, and capable of unprecedented collaboration. Our collective intelligence and creativity have the potential to solve the world's most pressing problems. On the other hand, we are still plagued by ancient hatreds, tribalism, and the lust for power. Conflicts arise, not just between nations, but within communities, fueled by fear and misunderstanding. The question that haunts us is this: is war an intrinsic part of human nature, an inescapable facet of our being, or can we evolve beyond our baser instincts? Or is it a learned behavior, a product of our social structures and historical baggage? History is filled with examples of both peace and conflict, suggesting that our actions are shaped by the context in which we live. The answer, perhaps, lies not in choosing one side or the other, but in recognizing the duality of our nature. We must acknowledge both our capacity for great good and our potential for great harm. By understanding this duality, we can strive to create a world where our better angels prevail. It requires conscious effort, education, and a commitment to empathy and understanding. The paradox of our time is a call to action. It challenges us to rise above our differences, to build bridges instead of walls, and to work together for a future where peace and progress are not just ideals but realities. Section 9. A Hope for Dawn. The future remains unwritten. The path we choose to forge will determine whether war continues to define our future or whether we can break free from the cycle of violence. Achieving lasting peace requires a fundamental shift in our thinking. It demands that we recognize our shared humanity, prioritize diplomacy and cooperation, and actively challenge systems that perpetuate conflict. It is a daunting task, but not an impossible one. The power to shape a more peaceful future lies within us all.